Welcome to the prefab tutorial for Unity 2.5. For this tutorial, I've downloaded the sewer scene that you can find on the Unity homepage. But of course the prefab functionality will work for any project. Prefabs are a way to bundle graphical and code objects together in Unity. In order to place them, modify them simultaneously, spawn them in the scene through code with the instantiate function, or a host of other things that make your production pipeline a lot easier. You can see a prefab as a kind of prototype. Here's an example to illustrate prefabs in Unity. So let's say I wanted to add a steaming pipe to each of these vats I have here in the sewer. So first I'll add the actual pipe. We'll worry about the steam a little bit later. So I go to the Create menu and I create myself a cylinder. I will scale it a little bit and I will add a nice material to it. Here's one that looks nice. I'll rotate the pipe, position it in the scene, and now I'll add smoke to the pipe. I'll add a particle system. I'll parent the particle system to the pipe, and let me just make sure it's centered. I'm going to make the particles a bit bigger and make them live a little bit longer, and now I'll give them a little bit of draft. So now we have something that rises very slowly, makes it look like smoke. And here I'll give it a bit of random movement. And here making sure they all start from within the pipe. There we go. Okay, now I will choose a material from the project to use instead of the default particle, like this steam material, which is used somewhere in the scene. So now we have our pipe ready with steam coming out of it. So let's take a look at what it looks like when running in the game engine. So let's move a little bit closer to it, and here we have it, a steaming pipe. Let's angle it downwards a little bit. And let's have a look again. Okay, I'm happy with that. And now let's create a prefab from this cylinder and the smoke. So what I'll do is I'll go to my project view and I'll create prefab. And now I have a new prefab. I'll give it a name. I'll call it Steamy Pipe. And what I do is I simply take the cylinder and drag it to my Steamy Pipe prefab. And now the cylinder is a prefab. So I have my prefab selected, and I'll create a few duplicates of this, pressing Ctrl D on Windows and Apple D on Mac. And now I'll move one instance of the prefab to the other vat, and the third one I'll move over here. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now I have my three prefabs placed. And we can see what this looks like in the game engine here. Now the interesting thing about the three prefabs here is that they are all instances of the same prefab. To illustrate what this means, let's say I'm not really happy with the color of the smoke. So I'll pick one of the instances of the prefab and I'll change the color. I'll give it a green tint to make it look a little bit more evil. And let's have a look at what that looks like in the game engine. Now note that the color of the prefab instance that I just changed has changed color, but not the other two instances of the prefab. But now the fume looks a bit more noxious, which is what I wanted. So I'm happy now. And what I'll do now is I'll apply the change to prefab which I can do with this apply button. What that does, which we can see when we go back into the game view, is that it immediately applies this same change to all instances of that prefab. This means you can have prefabs that look a little bit different, but if you choose to, you can make them all look the same by the click of one button. And this concludes the prefab tutorial for Unity 2.5.